I was traveling this summer in China, and I went to a small village outside of this town called Guilin in the rice terraces, and I can never remember the name of the town because it's in Chinese. And this village, the rice terraces are very narrow, so everything has to be carried up on people's backs, and or with certain contraptions like you can see in this photo. And the region is really well known for their cured pork that they make. And this man has these two pigs that he's carrying up the path that are going to become dinner. And something that was really interesting to me about being there was the blend between something that we could consider pretty ancient and something that was incredibly modern. So I was staying in this lodge, and they were serving me pork and vegetables and all these delicious dishes from the pigs that they had brought up. But then at the same time, the owner of the lodge had a cell phone. He had a BlackBerry, and there was a computer with Wi-Fi, and I could Skype with friends. And so it was this interesting merging of the old and the new, and kind of made me reevaluate what is new and how do we define that. I just thought it was an amazing creative device and way. This man very clearly wouldn't have been able to nudge the pigs up the path. And so carrying them like that was, I think, just a smart, interesting solution and nothing like I had ever seen before.
These girls are in the outskirts of Bodh Gaya, and they live there. They have a very agricultural lifestyle, very simple. And as all the other children in the village, they're very intrigued by foreigners, especially white people, especially young white people. So them seeing a group of white students walking around outside of town was very intriguing to them. So the moment that they saw us, they latched onto us and followed us, and we had a good time with them. And in this photo, they're perching over a wall to watch us as we got ready to play and ride around town on the elephant that lived across the town from the monastery we were staying in. And they were simply interested in seeing what we were doing and how we were doing it. And it was a very simple relationship that we had with them, and no one was asking anything of the other group. So there was a very basic beauty in that. I think I wanted to capture that moment and how different it would be in India versus here. And I don't think there would be as simple of a relationship there here, and usually people approach you when they want something or need something, whereas in India a lot of times people communicate solely for the sake of wishing each other a good day or just asking what's going on. Everything there is a drastic contrast to here, at least in the rural areas, so I found it really inspiring.
I was in Bilbao, Spain, and I was entering a cathedral, and they typically have panhandlers and that kind of thing outside in Europe. And I noticed this woman's kind of sitting in the doorway, and I walked in, and I turned around, and the doors were open. So I saw her from the inside out, in the inside of the cathedral, looking out. Yeah, I thought it was a really good shot, because there was a whole big square right there, and there were little kids running around, and she was just kind of sitting there, just watching them, very serene. So I thought it was cool. I was on vacation, so I had my camera ready at every moment, and I'm not very experienced with photography, but I thought it would be something that turned out well, and it did. She was like a gypsy. Typically, they stand outside of churches and ask for money, that kind of thing. The cathedral was the oldest one in Bilbao, which is a city in the north of Spain. But in the photo, there's tons of little kids running around and all this modern life, and you can see, new shops and just, I don't know, it's kind of a clash between the cathedral, which frames the photo, and the doors of that, which is very old and antique, and then looking out, it kind of shows the new in the middle.
I went to a Chinese New Year festival, and a bunch of little girls were performing, and they were getting ready backstage, and this one girl kept peeking out at me, and one time I just turned around so she wouldn't keep looking at me, and then I turned back around and she was staring right at me, and then I just took the photo, and it came out pretty well. I was talking to my photojournalism professor. She was always talking about moments, not necessarily looking at the performance itself, but finding those little things that tell you more about the type of event, and she always told us to like try to get backstage. So I eventually liked the backstage area, but they had a curtain around them getting ready. So, but I'm glad I stayed and waited for a moment. I thought it was just a very beautiful moment, just sort of like her innate curiosity coming out, just outside of everything that was so traditional and structured. It was just something very like cute. There were a bunch of like their mothers backstage, like traditional Chinese mothers, always just like trying to keep the curtain closed, like can't see them before, and they kept peeking out at me. And they're very modern at this age of children. Very just no barriers, I feel like. So a lot more loose.
This is a monk that was on a pilgrimage to Bodh Gaya, which is where the Mahabodhi temple is located, which was built around the Bodhi tree, which is where Buddha attained enlightenment. So this monk is meditating underneath the tree, and it's a really meaningful moment for pilgrims and for monks especially, because they are trying to cultivate the kind of inner strength and peace that will get them to the point that Buddha was at. So it was just a really inspiring experience to go and be able to interact with pilgrims and be able to observe really religious communities, whether it be for cultural reasons or for formal religious reasons. The Mahabodhi temple was really a place that came to life. Mainly as a memory, we saw and interacted with, we saw hundreds of pilgrims and monks all day and got to interact with a few of them, and I think this was just a way to capture that and bring it back home with me.